going back to the definition of well-being, how do you get from that very broad concept to something that is measurable and actionable? Or even if I can push it, how do you get from that to something to which government can be accountable so we can all agree on whether or not we succeeded or a policy succeeded in attaining this thing or moving towards it?
There's so many people working in the well-being sphere using different language, different concepts, different measures at all the different levels. And it's so interrelated to so many different things like reconciliation and safety and anti-racism and on, economy, the built in natural environments. So I think what we need is a common language and some common, reference points. Maybe we won't land on one framework, but maybe a municipality could do that. A municipality on its own, in that local context can land on its own framework. You're going to have to build in a lot of humility, a lot of learning and listening, and a desire to continuously improve the approach or the framework and the language and the solution ideas and the measures. That is always going to be changing. It can't be static because it's so complex.
We're still early days in landing on a place where we've developed a common measurement framework. And I think that's really the challenging and both, opportunity laden work before us is, measuring what matters, doing it in a way that is going to be, universally recognized as a framework to help move the needle towards a more sustainable future. And within the government of Yukon, we're very focused on evidence-based decision making, supporting all of our funding, program, service decisions with evidence to say, we are delivering on the outcomes we've committed to. And for us, a well-being framework with a robust measurement kind of monitoring, reporting process underneath it becomes that critical next step to move beyond conversational or theoretical definitions of well-being and into a more, transactional posture on that front.
I think so. I just came last week from a meeting. I was at a World Health Organization meeting that was focused on health as a driver of the well-being economy. And I learned from what places are actually doing around the world in terms of creating well-being. And so, if you look at a place like Wales, for example, where in, I believe it was 2015, they came out with the Future Generations Act. And so it's inherently practical, right? This is a legal framework within which policymakers are working to make very concrete decisions about what policy initiatives they want to take up, what the budget priorities are, and things like that. And so just to give you a very concrete example, there was recently a very large road project, an infrastructure project. And as they started to review it against the legal framework of the Future Generations Act, they began to recognize that actually this road, while it might be good in the near term, in the longer term, in terms of future generations, it would have a lot of negative impacts in terms of carbon emissions, in terms of wildlife and habitat destruction. And in the end, they did not go through with it. So that's just a very concrete example of once you have this sort of the goal and the vision and ideally a legal framework, the way Wales has, against which to benchmark all of your policy and legislative issues, it becomes, I won't say simple, but it becomes a matter of looking at those side by side.
Well, I come from the world of big data and, take a pleasure in trying to measure the very difficult things, the intangibles. And I think the interesting thing with this area is that things we might have considered once intangible and impossible to measure, concepts like happiness or trust or life satisfaction and so on, we're finding ways to actually measure those things. And I think it's important to do this, or to try our best to do this, because as we all know, what is measured matters.